What's up? Welcome in to the latest episode of Pod Like a Champion, the blueandgold.com recruiting podcast. I'm Patrick Engel, joined as always by our recruiting insider, Mike Singer. And Mike, I hope you weren't expecting a calm finish to signing day when it certainly seemed like that was the way it was heading in September and October, but anything but right now as we sit a little under a month from the early national signing period. How about that?
Was it past 8 days, Patrick? Notre Dame's picked up five new commitments. So yeah, it's been pretty stinking busy. But I mean, look, it's recruiting. It's 2020. Just always expect the unexpected. That's what I say.
So much for an open date, or at least for you. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad it wasn't all on me. Where hey, I have the open date after football, and bam, so all these commitments. So shouts to you for handling all that and letting the open week be somewhat open for for me here. But anyway, please, if you are listening to the podcast, make sure you are subscribed to the podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever else you get your podcast. If you'd be so kind, please leave us 5 stars and nice comments and tell your friends about us if you like what you hear. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more YouTube content and video content, all kinds of stuff over there. And please, if you are interested in subscribing to blueandgold.com, what are you waiting for? And we've got a great deal for you here. If you use the promo code Nike75, that's Nike 75, when you sign up, you can get a $75 Nike gift card and $25 off your first year of an annual subscription to blueandgold.com. Lastly, you can follow Mike on Twitter at rivals_singer, and you can follow me at Patrick Engel _. All right, Mike, let's get into that most recent commitment here on earlier on Tuesday afternoon, as we are just a few hours after recording this on Tuesday, November 24th. Jojo Johnson out of Maryville, Indiana, three-star cornerback, former Cincinnati commit, Michigan State, Purdue, Indiana, Iowa, among the other offers for him. He committed to Notre Dame. Tell us about what the Irish are getting in Jojo Johnson and how this came together, really, after he committed 2 days after picking up the offer.
Yeah. So this is a young man who was at Notre Dame's Irish Invasion in 2019, that summer camp that did not get to happen this year. He was at the Virginia game as well with his folks. But Notre Dame just didn't. I mean, they weren't really on him. I would say until a couple weeks ago, they kept it warm. They sent him stuff last September when Notre Dame was allowed to start officially recruiting 2021 recruits. But yeah, it really picked up in the past couple of weeks. Brian Polian, Mike Mickens led this recruitment. The offer came on Sunday, November 22nd. At that point, it was pretty stinking apparent that he was going to be committing to Notre Dame. So myself and Mason Plummer went ahead and put in future cast picks for Johnson to land at Notre Dame. And I mean, I even wrote Tuesday morning in a recruiting scoop piece that you're going to want to check out, Notre Dame fans. I was like, nothing new, just kind of waiting for him to commit pretty much. So that commitment came together quickly. But look, Patrick, you read the offer list, kind of his notable offers. Rivals list him with 18 in total, but yeah, Indiana, Iowa, Michigan State, Purdue. Those were the four kind of in the mix the most there. So I mean, most of the time Notre Dame's going to beat out those schools, especially for an in-state kid who's been to Notre Dame a few times. So as far as the on the field predictivity, you like what you see at receiver for sure, and the speed is what pops out the most. He's played some Wildcat quarterback, a lot of receiver. He was a huge part in his high school team going to the 6A state semifinals. I believe it was 11 touchdowns, 840 receiving yards. But look, this is a cornerback commitment for Notre Dame. We talk about this all the time with the versatility of being able to play multiple positions every year. Notre Dame, it seems like they're moving a guy from offense to defense or vice versa. That could be the case with Johnson. Listed at 5'11", 170 pounds. He's probably closer to 5'10", though. But he's someone that look, Notre Dame loves these versatile guys, and so he could move over to receiver if corner's not really working out. But I'll also add that Notre Dame loves taking receivers that they can move to corner. And they did that with, or they were at least recruiting Andrel Anthony, or 3-star from Michigan, who's now committed to the Wolverines. They were recruiting him. They thought his upside was best at defensive back. Well, Johnson is this receiver, and like last year when Notre Dame was considering him, they were really looking at him as a receiver. Well, now he's been playing a lot of DB this year, so he at least has that experience. But I would say at this point in his career, he's more so a receiver than a corner. But Notre Dame, again, likes taking these receivers and turning them into defensive backs. They see the athletic traits, they see the speed. So I don't think he has the highest upside in the world, but I think he can be a solid slot guy. I'm not sure about a player comp, but someone like Sean Crawford, that is just a guy you can play at corner, nickel, safety. Like he's been moved around so much his career with that versatility. Look again, Jojo Johnson has the tools. I'm just really considering and looking at if Notre Dame's able to get him to where they want him to be. But fifth defensive back commitment in the class, Patrick. I like the take for Notre Dame. I'm not like it's a huge wow, like whoa, like this is a huge recruiting pickup. But it's a solid take. If this were a class where Notre Dame were taking like 2 defensive backs, then you would want it to be like 2 guys that are like what you're getting. With Johnson, he's a project, and that's not a bad thing because those projects are boom and bust kind of people. But overall, again, it's a solid commitment. I like it for Notre Dame. He can play multiple spots. He's got blazing speed. His tape's a lot of fun to watch. Great on both sides of the ball. Can help out in return game right away. So, yeah, good take for Notre Dame.
Yeah, a few things based on that, and just to go on your theme of taking receivers and moving them to DB. I mean, the first name that comes to my mind when we're talking about the current roster is Cam Hart. Obviously, a different type of guy than him. He's a 6'2", bigger receiver who plays the boundary corner, and he's Nick McLeod's backup. He's a converter receiver. And if you even look at both the receivers in Notre Dame's on the offensive side of this class, Lorenzo Styles, you can turn on the film and see what he can do as a defensive back.
Yeah.
Jaden Thomas, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but some of his
Played.
offers
Yep.
were at DB, or Notre Dame had kicked around the idea of him playing there.
Correct.
And this isn't
Correct.
me saying either of those two should move over there, but it's at least like a skill set that is good enough to play that spot at some FBS or Power Five school. So like at least you just have it, and you have the versatility, even if both of those guys are going in, as it sounds like, and seemingly as it should be, that they're going to be playing receiver. And I'm also, if I'm not mistaken, Johnson was committed to Cincinnati as a receiver, right?
I think so. I'm not going to say that 100% certainty, but my understanding is that when Mike Mickens was at Cincinnati, that he did not offer Johnson, so that would lead you to assume he was playing receiver. I can't say that 100% certainty, but that's my understanding, Patrick. That I want to say he was committed there
Right.
as a receiver, or maybe just like an athlete, like an either kind of guy.
Right, right. And I don't, yeah, they're Johnson's commitment didn't overlap with Mickens' Cincinnati tenure. I know that. I don't know off the top of my head, or I can't remember just from looking back when he
Mickens,
picked up that offer. But
right? Yeah, he picked up the offer last fall. Mickens left Cincinnati for Notre Dame in March, and then Johnson committed to Cincinnati in May,
right,
and then decommitted in October.
right. Okay. Yeah, I knew that it didn't overlap, but okay. So that is interesting and maybe telling a little bit that Mickens was at Cincinnati when Johnson was offered, but he didn't offer him. So maybe that just tells you, what position or whatever Cincinnati saw him in the class wasn't exclusively a corner. And really, we're getting into semantics of a prior
Oh
commitment that
yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
really
yeah.
matter here.
Right.
But just to going back to the overall point and illustrating like you could see him ending up at a number of things or just a skill set that translates to a few different things. And look, this is the fifth defensive back commitment in the class. And and I'm not to say here that you wouldn't have taken him when you're in a two or a three-person defensive class, just depending on whatever the roster might look like. Especially with, I mean, I think it could have worked with Notre Dame's current roster, just when you look at all the young DBs in the fold, and that even if you had decided for whatever reason that this was going to be a small class, yeah, he could have fit in there, or someone like him at least could have fit in
Sure.
there, just because you have all these corners with 4 years of eligibility left. And same thing with safety, where you have a lot of those guys here for multiple seasons, including 2020, that is. And but anyway, to your point of you can take a 50B as we'll put him wherever, or he ends up on offense just because of what else is already in here. With like, all right, Ryan Barnes is your play him in either one, can work at either corner or safety, just good player. Philip Riley seems like he has the true corner skill. He's a big dude, but we'll see. Justin Walters is like, all right, that guy's a safety no matter what. And then
Potential
Chance
rover.
Tucker,
I would say with Walters, he could be a rover. He's just that hard hitting guy. So
right?
yeah, I would
He's
say
not a
safety
corner. We know
rover.
that.
Right, that's correct. Yeah,
Yes, and Chance Tucker being like cover corner, that guy's a cornerback,
yeah,
no matter what. And then we've talked about the composition of this class a lot on these prior podcasts, but it just goes to show, like, yeah, the different types of skill sets that they've accumulated with now five players in the defensive back class.
yeah. So you look at the five, and you just did a great job. Quick recap on that. So you have Barnes, corner safety, kind of hybrid guy. Riley, I want to say, is maybe even the most versatile, a corner safety rover. Like literally could be three. He's that. From when I saw him in September, I've talked about this. I feel like every single podcast we do, Patrick, but he just looks so big when I saw him. So I would say even he has the three. You have Justin Walters as a safety rover. Who am I? Chance Tucker. I would not move him from corner, but with his length, he could play safety, like in a pinch, like he could be a free safety. But yeah, to me, he is a lockdown field or boundary corner. And then you have Johnson, who is a kind of corner receiver, maybe nickel. So he's like the athlete one where he could play either side of the ball. Now I'm thinking about, it, I don't think any of the other Chance Tucker has played some receiver. I know Riley's played a little receiver, but to me, Johnson is the best receiver of the bunch. So if one of them's to play offense, it'd probably be Jojo Johnson as a slot guy. So yeah, the composition of the defensive back class is balanced. Like if it was a bunch of safety rover guys, you wouldn't like that in this class. You needed some cover guys. And I think they have a good mix of that. I would say the best cover guy, like true cover guy, is Chance Tucker in this class. And Jojo Johnson is raw there. I hope my opening talk on him didn't seem like it was negative on Jojo. I really like him. He's just not as maybe proven as some of the other guys. Like he really bursted onto the scene as a senior, whereas some of those other guys, all of them were committed pretty much based on their junior tape. Like even Philip Riley just committed, but last week, but he was originally committed, or that Notre Dame offered just on junior tape. So yeah, I like the take again for Notre Dame. There's just work, but I would say there's a pretty high ceiling for him. Not like crazy, a big time All American, but 2 year solid starter for Notre Dame.
So we both touched on Philip Riley, and that leads us right into the big week last week for Notre Dame. Riley, one of the four commitments last week for the Irish. Of course, he's the four-star cornerback out of, I believe it's the Tampa area.
Yep.
But Riley, getting him back in the fold for a second time, flipping him back from USC. Caleb Johnson, three-star offensive lineman, also from Florida, flipping him from Auburn. Kahanu Kia, three-star linebacker from Hawaii, same high school as Manti Te'o, grabbing him over a few Pac-12 schools. And then Joshua Bryan, kicker, out of California, flipping him from a Colorado commitment. So, Mike, I'm just going to really give you the floor here to talk about how all of these came together. But I will add kind of the fun little nugget is Riley is the second recommitment or second commitment in the class joining Dion Colsey. That happened 10 classes ago, I guess, in 2011, when both Stefan Tuitt and Aaron Lynch, both recommitments, and in that very same class, and really in the down the stretch in that same class, and under Brian Kelly, there's only been one other guy to do that recommit, and that was, of course, Braden Lindsay. But all right, Mike, take as long as you want here. Just tell us about how this big week came together, and just really how all of these recruitments ended up this way.
It would be pretty fun on one of these podcasts where it's a super chill, relaxed pod where we both have, and we're visibly for our YouTube audience, maybe drinking a beer, sipping on a whiskey. And for if you're listening, we would say you're not allowed to drive. This has to, you all, if you're gonna, maybe we'll do that for a future one, that you also have to be drinking with us. Maybe we'll do that like a post signing day after I'm just
Make it
being
like a
like,
fireside chat, like Franklin Roosevelt used to do. That's right. Yeah,
perfect. There you go.
gonna do one of
The, the good
you
old
have to
days.
sit down when you're listening. We will enforce it.
Okay, yeah. Not sure how we'll do that, but yeah, we're doing it. Okay. So these these five new commitments. So Notre Dame's previous commitment that wasn't in the past 8 days of us recording this. The most recent one before that was Jaden Thomas, which I believe was October 2nd. So let's just lump these five together. Kahanu Kia, his dad played at Utah and like he was very familiar with the Utes program. So let's just even for the sake of this discussion, let's just say Kahanu Kia is basically a Utah commitment. He was never committed to Utah, but let's just for the sake of this, you have five kids who are either strongly leaning towards one school or committed to one school, or committed to a school that are now on Notre Dame's commitment list. Philip Riley, who went from Notre Dame to USC to Notre Dame. Joshua Bryan, who the kicker from California, he wanted to go to Notre Dame, but he didn't have the scholarship spot, so he committed to Colorado, basically hoping that Notre Dame would offer him. There you go. Kanu Kia, like I just mentioned, he even admitted to me that for the longest time he thought he was going to play at Utah. And then it wasn't until about a week after Notre Dame offered him, and he was on a Zoom call with the staff, that he was like, "Yeah, oh, I want to go to Notre Dame." Like when Notre Dame offered him, he did it. He was like, "Wow, this is really cool and everything," but like, I don't know if I'm gonna go play in Indiana. As it was about a week afterwards, was on one of those presentations with the staff that he was like, "All right." Like Notre Dame's a realistic thing, so he essentially, just for the sake of this, flipped from Utah to Notre Dame. You have Caleb Johnson, who Fort Wayne kid. I actually talked to his dad about this. I want to say he moved around a ton as a kid because his dad was playing arena ball. His dad even played in NFL Europe. Do you remember NFL Europe, Patrick?
Yeah, NFL Europe legend Jake Delhomme or Kurt Warner. Wasn't it one of those two guys who
Kurt
played in NFL Europe? I
Kurt played
feel like
arena
it.
ball. Jake maybe
Okay.
did. Jake yeah,
I
Jake
feel like
Delhomme,
there was
Panthers.
someone who did NFL Europe, like some quarterback who actually started multiple games.
Who
It's
was the one who played in the XFL? Was that Big Ben? Who played in the XFL?
no, that was too late for. He was too late for the
Tommy
XFL. I
Maddox.
mean,
Tommy Maddox. Do you
that's
remember
right.
Tommy
Yeah,
Maddox for the
yeah.
Steelers?
Pre
Quarterback before
Roethlisberger
him.
Steelers.
There you go. How about that? Who would have thought we were talking XFL and
Well,
NFL
now
getting
we
that?
had a current XFL or last week, and PJ Walker, who I saw play in college, by the way.
There you go.
Anyway, let's get back on the on ramp here. As much as
Yeah.
I would love to talk XFL anytime,
Give the people what they want. This is an XFL
yes,
podcast. Anyways,
this is the Pro
um,
XFL podcast.
so yeah, Caleb has moved around a good bit. Colorado, played for the Indiana Firebirds. So I want to say he was born in the Indianapolis area, but from about 2007 to 2017, he lived in Fort Wayne, went to Homestead High School his freshman year. So you have Johnson, who for our YouTube audience, we have the last five commitments pulled up. You have Johnson, who's listed as his location's Ocala, Florida, and Philip Riley, his location Valrico, Florida. You have Johnson, who's really from Indiana, and Philip Riley is really from Seattle. So when you look at this class, if you're not a Notre Dame junkie, if you're listening to this podcast, you're a Notre Dame recruiting junkie, you would just assume, oh, look at Notre Dame getting back into Florida. Well, not really, because they didn't take any Florida kids in 2020. I can't remember if they did or not in 2019, but I know they took a few in 2018 with that was the year of Kevin Austin signed. But yeah, so Notre Dame's like kind of in Florida, but these kids aren't from Florida. Caleb Johnson's, more of a local kid, and Philip Riley from Pacific Northwest. Maybe you guys don't care about that. I think it's interesting. But yeah, so Caleb Johnson, Notre Dame offered him in April. He had been to he went to the USC game. He had been on campus 3 times um, before he got the offer, but he hasn't been back since because of the dead period. And he's going to enroll early, and he'll be on campus not in not too long a time. Right from this list, Riley is also enrolling early, and Jojo Johnson tells me he is also enrolling early. But yeah, Caleb Johnson, that is, his flip from Auburn. Um, he flipped or announced his decision on November 19th. He told me going into the Zoom call in which he committed to Notre Dame that he was about 50-50, maybe 60-40 leaning towards the flip. But so that a lot of people kind of thought that that was set in stone, like he was a big old silent commitment. Nope, that wasn't the case. He was, he hadn't told them prior to that day that he was coming. So yeah, I love that commitment for Notre Dame. Caleb Johnson's just going to be a big time player. He's going to be a solid right tackle, left guard, right guard. I don't think he'd play center, but maybe. But seriously, this is a guy who could play all 5 spots. While you gave me the floor to just kind of go wherever I want with this, so I will. We talked about the defensive back. What was the word you used, Patrick, that I liked? How they all kind of mesh and fit
Composition,
together. Yeah, the
class
composition.
composition. Yeah, we'll
The
go with that.
composition of the offensive line is very good as well. Let me break this down because you have 5 there as well. You basically have a starting 5 offensive line. So let's just say in a few years from now that the 2021 offensive line signees for Notre Dame are your starting offensive line. Let's just say that. Here's what I would go with. From left to right, you got Joe Alt at left tackle. Let's go with Rocco Spindler at left guard. At center, you have Pat Coogan. At right guard, Caleb Johnson. And right tackle, Blake Fisher. How about that? I think the ones you could flip um, would be maybe Johnson and Fisher. Maybe Johnson's the right tackle and Fisher's the right guard. Obviously, you can move Joe Alt to right tackle, but the definite interior players in this class, in my opinion, are Pat Coogan, who by the way is listed as a tackle by Rivals. And our Midwest analyst Josh Hemmelt says all the time that he could play any 5 spots on the offensive line. So even Rocco Spindler's been playing left tackle this season. So all of these guys have position versatility. But in my opinion, Pat Coogan and Rocco Spindler are definitely inside guys. Joe Alt to me is definitely an outside guy, and then Fisher and Johnson are both inside/outside guys, so they could play either. But I love the composition of this offensive line class, and yeah, we spent a good time talking about Jojo Johnson, formerly a Cincinnati commitment. So look, folks, it's flipping season. It is flipping season.
Yeah, that is now, I think it's officially 5 guys who had in the class who've committed elsewhere. And if you want to throw Kahanukia in as like a kid who was
No,
very heavily leaning toward Utah.
we won't. But yeah, so the 4, the Caleb Johnson, JoJo Johnson, Joshua Bryant, Philip Riley, those are the 4. And then the 5th people forget about, I'm glad you brought this up, Patrick, is Will Schweitzer from California. He was one of these kids who committed to Notre Dame and never even posted on social media that he had the offer. He was committed to Nebraska one day, decommitted from Nebraska, and flipped to Notre Dame about 2 hours later. So that one definitely caught some people by surprise because no one really knew that he was even on Notre Dame's radar. We had reported at blueandgold.com that Notre Dame was looking at him, but I mean, when you don't post the offer, how are you supposed to know people that you're being looked at? So, not Philip, right? Joshua Bryan. He never even did that either. He just kind of flipped to out of the blue from Colorado. So, yeah, five flips in the class. I don't know off the top of my head if that's like a big crazy number or if that's kind of standard or what, but that seems pretty notable to me.
All I know is this is that there were none in 2020, and I believe just two in 2019. And that would be Brendan Clark and JD
Yep.
Bertrand from Wake Forest in Georgia. 2018, I want to say, had a bunch like Houston Griffith and Braden Lenzy and Jarrett Patterson. I think Sibo Flemister was committed. There might be a couple other guys I'm missing in there somewhere, but those are the highlights, I think, of that class. Maybe DJ Brown, I want to say, was committed
Hmm.
elsewhere. Maryland or Virginia. I can't. I'm sure some of you guys are screaming at me, not knowing which one off the top of my head. But yeah, that class had a lot, and so in that class also had a few more guys, and we'll see. This might end up being a thing where there's one more and there's somewhere. You never know. It's flip season, and there's still a whole nother late signing period and all the craziness that can bring. But yeah, it's a sizable number just in and of itself, and certainly maybe stands out a little less just when you expect all the flips that are going to come here with the dead period and whatever other craziness recruiting in 2020 is going to bring. But yeah, it's notable. I think 2016 and 2015 classes had a 5+ flips in there. Obviously, Ian Book being
You wrote this article,
but
right? You,
I did do the all decommit team. Yes, I and actually I can have my notes in front of me. Yeah, I found them. Okay, so I have all the flips of the
here we
Brian Code
go.
era right here. Yeah, this
Let's
this
hear
is
it.
where this research from months ago pays off. Okay, 2018 officially had 7
What?
guys who were committed elsewhere. Yeah,
7?
I believe it was 27 guys in that class. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think so.
it's a huge class.
Houston Griffith, Florida State, Braden Lenzy, Oregon, Noah Boykin, former Notre Dame defensive back, now Maryland, Jarrett Patterson, Arizona State, DJ Brown, Virginia. I thought that was right.
Good one.
Luke Jones, Arkansas, who now plays for Arkansas. Sibo Flemister, the double whammy, Georgia Tech, Georgia Southern. Let's see
Hmm.
if that class is the most of the Kelly era. No, it's tied with 2016, which has Ade Ogundeji, Western Michigan, Dalen Hayes, USC,
Right.
Khalid Kareem, Alabama, Troy Pride, Virginia Tech, Ian Book, Washington State, DJ Morgan, Arizona State, Spencer Perry, Florida. Yeah. Oh, okay. His first class has a bunch, but that's a whole different animal when you're putting a class together in a month and a half and
Right.
half the options you have are stealing other
How many
people's
was
commitment.
that then?
That was, let's see, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, 8.
Wow. Well, that 5 number just looks measly now. Man, so
Yeah.
we're both pretty new on the Notre Dame beat here. So that year where Khalid Kareem flipped from Alabama, man, I want to find those old message board posts. What were the people saying about that one? That one must have been fun. So if you're watching this on YouTube, tell us leave us a comment and tell us about that one. I would love to hear what the people thought about Khalid Kareem flipping from Alabama. And then if you're listening via podcast, shameless plug here, drop us that 5-star review and also tell us about Khalid Kareem. I would love to hear what people thought.
Yeah, let's just open it up a little even further a little bit here.
Okay.
For all you guys who are listening who've been following this longer than we've been on the beat, drop us a line on Twitter just with your reactions to some of these flips. And all right, obviously some of these are not straight flips. Like I don't
Right.
remember offhand if uh or it's like all right, he's committed and then it's flipped. Like there's a space between decommitment and
Sure.
commitment. But anyway,
Sure.
drop us a line on Twitter with what you remember, some of the reactions, either your
Not
own,
Twitter.
ideally.
That 5-star. We need that 5-star podcast review. That's better than leaving us a line on Twitter.
I
But yeah,
want to. I want to.
or you
Open,
could do
we
Twitter.
want to get the as big a sample size as possible. Although, yes, we'll love you forever if you drop it in a 5 stars and nice comments on the podcast section here on YouTube. But
Let me say this, Patrick. You send us whatever format it is, Twitter, YouTube, podcast, whatever. We can pop it on screen on YouTube, and we'll talk about it. And then we'll read it for our podcast audience. We'll talk about them, and we'll talk about some of our favorite flips, and maybe we'll bring Lou on, the historian who can remember, how many days the kid had been alive when he made the flip, or Lou no, Lou remembers everything. So yeah, we'll have some fun with it.
yeah, well, yes, whatever you want to submit it. Let's. I want to hear as colorful and creative as possible what your reactions were to some of these things. Yeah, again, you can tweet us at Patrick Engel _ and at Rivals _ Singer. Leave it in the comments. they have a podcast review or their YouTube comments, whatever you're listening to this, we'll pull some of our favorites and read them on a later show sometime before signing day. All right. So that covers that. And real quickly, I did look this up too, Mike. Notre Dame did not take any Florida players in the 2019 class.
Yeah,
So realistically, this is three classes without any true like guys from Florida, even though, yeah, you see those two there in Riley and Caleb Johnson who are from there. But again, like you said, not really like guys who grew up in Florida
right,
and were from there all along. And yeah, the 2018 had a good number. I know Houston Griffith is probably included in that, but he's from Chicago and he just
right.
played at IMG Academy. But
Yeah, Kevin
anyway,
Austin. There was a linebacker. I can't remember the linebacker that was from South Florida in that class, but yeah. I want to say there's
Joe Wilkins, I know
yeah, Joe
that.
Wilkins, Fort Myers area.
George
Yep.
Takis is probably in that class. He was in that class
Naples.
in
Yep.
Florida.
Who's the linebacker?
I don't know if it was anybody. That 2018 class had four guys who played high school ball at Florida or in Florida. And if there was someone who grew up in Florida and played high school elsewhere, I don't know that in particular. But it was Kevin Austin, Joe Wilkins, Houston Griffith, George Takis, and as we know, Houston Griffith really from Chicago. But all right, let's get to here the final spots in 2021. Really kind of coming down to just a couple here, Mike. It really seems like. Just kind of take us through all right, what's like the one position it seems to me where all right, they're trying to get somebody here is running back. And then I don't know, however many else, Mike, are available. It really just kind of seems like best available here. And I can imagine and think of off the top of my head the couple of names that are involved in there. But take us through that and where Notre Dame stands with its kind of few last remaining options here that we know about at least for 2021.
Before I get into that, I was thinking of Drew White in the 2017 class, just so I don't,
Okay. Yes.
people don't
Yeah.
think I'm
He's
an idiot. I was mistaken. It's from Fort Lauderdale. So, I mean, look, I'm not in the quote unquote war room with Brian Polian and Dave Poloquin and all the assistant coaches. So, take it for what it's worth. I try to do my best to turn every single stone to know what's going on. But this is my view on the situation. And again, if you would ask me 6 months ago how many recruits Notre Dame was going to take in this class, I would have said 18 to 21. 21, man, they're stretching it. Yeah, here they are with 24. If you read my stuff at Blue and Gold, there's one that I don't anticipate to sign with Notre Dame. So let's just, say 23. There's definitely going to be one more running back. If Notre Dame for some reason is not able to take a second running back in the class, then I would anticipate them taking a transfer running back. So you're definitely looking at another running back. Donovan Edwards has been the guy for months. Even when Notre Dame got Logan Diggs, they were pretty much done at running back, but they were not going to turn down Donovan Edwards if he wanted in. So they always kept recruiting him because he was just one of those too good to pass up. But then when you have Jameer Smith leave the program and Jafar Armstrong just wasn't really working out at running back, so he moves to receiver. Staff decided, yeah, we need another one. I mean, right now they have four scholarship running backs. You have Sibo, Tyree, Kyron Williams, and then Kendall Abdul Rahman, who super unproven at this point. We don't know exactly what he is. So bring in a couple more guys in this class. You have Logan Diggs, who I mentioned. Donovan Edwards is the guy the Irish really want. If you want all the scoop on him, go to blueandgold.com. Use that Nike 75 promo. If you're already subscribed, then it's that scoop article. You know what I'm talking about. To get all the kind of the nitty gritty for you recruiting junkies, you want to know what's going on. So again, promo code Nike 75. Just use it. Okay. So yeah, Notre Dame's got a shot with Donovan Edwards. That's kind of the Cliffs. They're working on him. They had a productive Zoom call with him on Monday night, but I mean, you even talk to those close to Donovan, and they don't even really know what the heck he's gonna do. So tough recruitment read there. If not Donovan Edwards, the guys that you really want to know are Byron Cardwell from San Diego. The good thing about Byron is that he, besides him being a fantastic football player, is that he's skipping the early period, so Notre Dame has some time there. So he'll be signing in February. And then you have Audric Estime, who Notre Dame has not offered yet. He's committed to Michigan State. I like him a lot. Big bruising back. He would complement, the lightning of guys like Chris Tyree, Kyron Williams, and you bring in the thunder of an Audric Estime. Um, and then yeah, so we'll see what they do there with running back. If they get Donovan, that's a perfect world. But it's kind of seems like a wait and see period with Donovan and an Audric Estime. Like, when do we offer Audric? Like, at what point do we pull that trigger? So it's a fascinating situation. But again, I'm expecting one more running back for Notre Dame in the 2021 class, and then it feels like, to me at least, it's a best available type deal. Notre Dame does not need a sixth defensive back in this class, but if C.A. Wright from Los Angeles wants in, I expect Notre Dame to take him. Notre Dame does not necessarily need another defensive lineman in this class, but Kelvin Gilliam is someone that the staff loves and wants in there. Notre Dame doesn't really need another receiver, but the staff is picking things up with a commitment in the Big Ten receiver spot. Again, go to blueandgold.com to get more information on that. So that's my understanding. I mean, look, scholarship numbers are super fluid with how many guys you can take in a class. So what I say this week might be a lot different than what I said Pod Like Champion 2 weeks, and it might be a lot different than what we say in a couple weeks from now on this. So things change, but that's my expectation right now. Definitely one more running back, and then another that's like a best available guy in the class.
Yeah, the running back thing seems interesting to me, where if you think, and I don't know that they're necessarily viewing it this way, but let's just talk about it as if it is the case for a minute. If Estime is kind of one where if they offer, they would feel pretty good about their chances. And let's just say that's the case for a minute.
Yeah,
Then that presents you kind of an interesting deal where, all right, he's committed to Michigan State. You would assume that he's going to sign, or at least if he's not going to sign, that would at least change some things or shake some things up with Michigan State as far as what they're going to do and whatnot. I mean, it's kind of the classic thing of, hey, if you're not going to sign in the early period, we're not going to drop you. But if you'd like to, look around, that's totally okay. But we will too. That's if you kind of
sure.
think of it as a coaching staff standpoint. But yeah, interesting where how long does Notre Dame wait to make the move on that? Again, if indeed that's how they feel about it, versus wanting to see what Donovan Edwards does. I know he's an early enrollee, meaning he has
Yep,
to decide in mid-December. So at least that kind of puts a time frame on it. And from what I gather, at least it seems like, all right, Notre Dame could offer Estime on uh, what day before signing day, and maybe this thing's still in play. And again, like,
maybe.
let's just say that's the case where if they feel they can get him whenever, then you have that luxury of waiting that long. And again,
Sure.
you would know all that better than me there, just how likely that is. But like, if that is in fact the situation they're weighing here, then yeah, it's just kind of interesting to figure out how long do you see just how sincere or how long do you feel you're really in it for Donovan Edwards before just going ahead and getting a guy that you still like and wanting to make sure your chances of him don't run out. I don't know. That's just how I view it. And again, I don't know that all of that is necessarily like true, but again, if that's kind of the variable here, it's a little bit of an interesting decision kind of thing to make. I wouldn't call it a dilemma. I mean, that implies there's something wrong with it. Like, I don't know that there's anything bad about either of those outcomes, but just kind of a thing you have to weigh.
It does seem like a good problem to have. What they're faced with here, and yeah, I got nothing else to add. I think you just nailed it. So yeah,
So I'll end with this, and you mentioned a couple of Calvin Gilliam committed to Oklahoma, and we'll potentially one more guy in the Big Ten. So there's a chance out there for Notre Dame to tie that 2018 and 2016 classes in terms of total flips. And if you're curious, just so I don't leave you guys hanging, here are the 2010 flips in that class, all eight of them: T.J. Jones, Stanford; Lewis Nix, Miami; Luke Massa, Cincinnati; Derek Roback, Toledo; Tate Nichols, Stanford; the late Kona Schwenke, BYU; Danny Spond, Colorado; Chris Badger, BYU; and Stanford. So there you go.
wow.
Again, we'd love to hear from you guys on what kind of memory those bring back. You mentioned Jafar Armstrong a little while ago. There's another flip in that 2017 class. So yeah, I'm very curious to kind of crowdsource all of your guys' reaction to this who've been following this for a while. So again, we'd love to hear your reactions and memories of flips of Notre Dame past, or if there's someone you're really angling for in the future, we'd love to hear it. So that's going to do it for this episode of Pod Like a Champion. Again, we really appreciate you guys listening, especially in the middle of a pandemic. Again, if you haven't subscribed to blueandgold.com, got a great deal for you with that promo code Nike75. Use that when you sign up. You get a $75 Nike gift card and 25% off your first year of a blueandgold.com subscription. Follow us on Twitter at Patrick Engel _ at rivals _ singer. We'll talk to you again in a couple of weeks as we get closer to signing day. Till then, take care.